Hi, thanks for joining us. Today we're talking about making the most out of your trade show experience. I'm Sarah Seidem. I'm the managing editor of Groups Today.
Hi, I'm Jill Carroll. I'm the marketing and media consultant for Groups Today.
Now we're getting back into trade show season, which is great. A lot of people for this season, it's their first trade show in almost 2 years for a lot of people. So knowing that you've been to a lot of trade shows before, Jill, what are some of your tips that you have for making the most?
Yeah, so I think it's just, we're all feeling maybe a little rusty, and travel is can be just sounding a little more daunting. And I think being prepared for the trade show, whether it's travel or the show itself, is important. So that's hopefully we can share some tips today. And that thinking, we were talking earlier about business cards and like what are people using nowadays. And we concluded that business cards are still a thing. Actually, I brought something. I was at Circle, Michigan a couple weeks ago, and so it reminded me of the tip that we talked about. So some of the tips or the cards that I collected is that when you meet somebody immediately, you're going to meet a lot of people, right? And it gets a little overwhelming. So jotting down some notes on the back of a business card right away to remind you before you stuff it in your little sleeve here, I think is really good, because otherwise you get back to the office and you have these business cards and it's hard to remember people. I think at some point I've even put down things that we have in common, like, oh, they have a German short-haired pointer or something weird like that. So some sort of frame of reference that will remind you of who you met. So
yeah, that's
bring your business
tip.
cards. And if we all may need to update them because offices have changed. You might be working from home. Your phone numbers may have changed. So just make sure right now in preparation, you take a look and make sure you have what you need.
Mm-hmm. And another thing that I just recently was looking at is checking the dress code before you pack. You never know if there's a special event in the evening that you need to prepare for. If there's an anniversary event, sometimes there's some galas where you need some cocktail attire in addition to your already comfortable yet professional clothing for the daytime for your appointments and sessions. So checking that schedule, and if you don't necessarily see anything on there, or perhaps you've not been to this show you're going to before, checking in with someone who's been before.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, or even reaching out to the organizers themselves always is helpful and gives you a better idea of how to plan so you don't get there and feel a little out of place or uncomfortable with what you've packed.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And speaking of attire, shoes are so important. We've all been there where I personally have learned the hard way. I think a lot of us have learned the hard way by wearing shoes that are either new or the heel is too high and they're not comfortable, and you really will be miserable. It can just ruin it. So I think, fortunately with this whole thing with COVID, I think we've learned how to dress a little bit differently where we can still look put together but comfortable. Wedges are always a good choice if you're a woman, or just, investing in a good pair of shoes. Usually if they're cheap, then they're going to probably hurt your feet. So, shoes are important for sure. So make sure that you are packing what you can live in for a few days.
Yeah. And in addition to doing that so your feet feel good and your body feels good, taking steps to make sure that you actually feel good and feel healthy is also super important. That means washing your hands, bringing extra hand sanitizer, bringing extra masks, all those things that, are new considerations in addition to the things that you would already be doing to stay healthy. A tip that I really love is bringing either earplugs or an eye mask for sleeping, because I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize how important a good night's sleep is to be staying energized and have enough energy to go during trade shows. And sometimes you might have a noisy neighbor next door, or find out you can't close the curtain in your hotel room all the way for whatever reason. And those little things will help make your night as peaceful as possible.
Right. Well, and that brings up, if you're new to this industry, The reality is that these trade shows for tourism related shows, the reason these people are in the business that they are, and they like to have a lot of fun. And that includes sometimes, staying up late and going to, parties and that kind of thing. So I think that just your point is, and those are important events to attend because that's where you meet people and you make a lot of connections. So the things that you can do around that, like getting a good night's sleep, eating well, we know too the food is sometimes not always the greatest, or you don't have your options, but I always like to bring protein bars and apples to shows, things that I just know are part of my routine at home even, I think can just help, and vitamins too. Do you take any vitamins?
Oh, yes. Vitamins, collagen, all the good stuff. And on top of just eating healthy in general, sort of timing out your day is also very important. Having something nutritious in the morning, something protein packed, rather than something light is really going to serve you well later in the day, because you never know if you're going to be trapped at your booth or you end up in conversation after conversation and you don't want to leave. You want to keep that conversation going. All of a sudden, your whole day is gone and you realize, wow, I'm actually really hungry, and then your energy just plummets. So making sure you get that protein in early in the day, you'll just be happy you did it.
Yes, for sure. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, so speaking of like networking and attending events, another tip that we would like to share is knowing your elevator speech. So when we say elevator speech, it's really kind of what is your spiel? What would you say about yourself or your company that you can say in just a few seconds, because that's often all you have. Or somebody will say, oh, nice to meet you, and what is your name? And so just kind of having that down pat and just practicing it, I think will make you more comfortable. We have a lot of new people to the industry.
Yes.
And so, practicing that and just really putting yourself out there and being prepared to introduce and confident is going to be huge.
Yeah, and that into the next tip that we have is making yourself known. And that has to do with just being out there, even with people you already know, but especially because there are so many people who are new to the industry. And even if you know this person before, they may have shifted to a new role and you want to touch base and make yourself known. Maybe you've shifted to a new role and you need to sort of give an update to your folks about what you're up to now. So really push through to not skip those sessions and those opportunities for networking, because you never know who you're going to run into. And even though you're tired, you'll be happy you did it.
For sure. I haven't been in this industry. I've been working behind the scenes. I haven't been to like the trade show in so many years. So it's really fun. Like when I was at Circle Michigan, I recognized some people and we all look a little different, but not too much has changed. So that's fun. I think, just kind of just that confidence and just putting yourself out there is so important. And including what comes with that and putting yourself out there and being prepared is having a plan.
Yeah.
So, spending some time before you go to look at the registration lists. If you can get email lists, I like to email before and just introduce myself and say, hey, can we connect while we're there, or meet you, even if you don't have that time, just even that little touch point of I look forward to seeing you, I hope to see you is fine. Yeah. But that pre-work and being planned and planning ahead is good. There's often with the shows an app, so downloading the app in advance and playing around with that. Oftentimes people will start even communicating before the show via the app. And so that's a really great way to make connections.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And feeding into the idea of having a plan, it's also, the world we live in now, so essential to know COVID protocols. So certain shows may require proof of vaccination. They may require a negative test within a certain amount of time. And there also might be some additional things to consider, like stickers indicating comfortability level for when you arrive, so
that's a
people
great
know whether
idea.
if you're comfortable to shake hands or whatever the case may be. Look out for those protocols so that way you know you're adhering to them. And if you don't see them and you're curious, be sure to reach out, because it's always better and safer to just ask if you're curious.
Yes, I know. Throughout this whole thing with COVID, I'm like, my goal is to meet people where they are, you know, and so erring on the side of caution is smart, I think, for sure.
Absolutely. And if you're looking for more tips and tricks and content related to trade shows and the industry in general, be sure to head over to groupstoday.com, the resource for everything group travel. Thanks for joining, Jill.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye.
See you soon.